Yo, what's happening, everyone? Today's January 24th, 2016, and it is time to shave. I actually kind of switched up what I was going to use kind of at the last minute. I was going to talk about some new things and go over them, but I'm going to hold off on that to use some proven performers because I kind of want to talk about something else. So today's shave, we're going with the good old Simpsons Chubby 2 Disco Haze. Bad boy, I love this brush. I adore this brush. Today's soap is going to be Adagio from the house of Barrister and Mann. And today's razor is going to be a Wolfman WR1 OC on a WRH2 handle with a feather blade in the thing. And speaking of Wolfman, I've been talking to James a bit this weekend. James, of course, the guy that makes the razors. Been talking to him a bit this weekend, sent him some lulls, and he was saying that he recently took delivery of a newer air compressor, because he said his air compressors have been giving him problems over the past couple of, past 6 months or so. So yeah, he's gonna have those new air compressors. One of the things that's going to allow him to do is offer a matte finish for the new razors coming up. I don't know exactly when that's going to happen. Probably not just yet, but yeah. So that's going to be that's in the pipeline. Excuse me. Winter Storm Jonas. Jonas starts with a J. The word jerk starts with a J. There is a correlation there. Of course, Buster Knoxville didn't get anything. Didn't really get much of anything. Nashville, of course, because it's so cool. They got a lot of snow. They were absolutely walking in a winter wonderland. Must be nice, Nashville. Must be nice. Anyway, so yeah. That's that. In other unrelated news, my DJ mixer is tripping really hard. One of the outputs, the main output, appears to be rather toast, and I'm not too happy about that. It's not going to be a cheap fix, but you know, I kind of need to get that addressed, you know. So yeah, Barrister and Mann lathering up like the champ that it is. This is actually the very first soap I ever used in one of my videos. And what also is cool is the fact that the release from this year has this kind of record on it. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I think it's cool, at least. And you may think to yourself, but Deebs, that thing smells like spring and it has a little bit of menthol. Yeah, that's fine. Barrister Emmanuel rolls along, and it's been ages since I've used that soap, and I was thinking about it earlier, so I decided to go with it, you know? This is coming. This is pretty much where I want it to be. Excuse me. So yes, today we're going to talk about music. Today we're going to talk about history, and we're going to talk about the history of a style of music that I like a lot. And I'm going to distill, oh, there's that menthol. I'm going to distill quite a few years of research into roughly 23 minutes or so, which is usually about how long these things run for. Look at all that lather. Also, have a look at the majesty of this brush. So, we're going to talk about acid house. Acid house. The main thing about acid house is little silver machine from the Roland Corporation of Japan. It's been ages since I've used a feather blade in this razor. Man, what a combo. It was released by the Roland Corporation of Japan as a accompaniment for people that don't have like a bass player. The full name of the thing is a TB-303 bass computer, 1984. Anything that, anytime that they could use the word computer, you know that they're going to take advantage of it. So yeah, 1984. It was in production for about 2 years or so. About 20,000 units were sold. Yeah, that's not really a lot. That's not really a lot of units, so they go for quite a bit of money. They go for quite a bit of money on the secondary market, even though there are clones that do 303 things. They're not quite 303s, although the XOX box, from what I understand, is pretty much, it's pretty much right there. Anyway, so yeah, the TB-303 bass computer, it was marketed for people to have bass accompaniment without the necessity of somebody actually playing a bass guitar. It was released first in Japan before it made it over here, and the first units that made it to the States, and I don't actually know how long this was the case, but the first, at least I guess, one shipment of units that made it to the States did not ship with an English language instruction book. So the thing was kind of cumbersome. You know, it's not really the most user-friendly thing out there, but you know, you can play it. Actually, you program it more than you play, because improvisation on it is not really... Improvisation is not a 303 strength. So yeah, you know, people were left pretty much to fend for themselves. You know, these people that bought the 303 for its intended purpose, they gave up on them. Because again, the thing is, it's a bear to use, to say the least. Now, of course, you know, people have gotten better with them. Some people actually are very good. Some people are better than others at actually playing them. But there were six parameters, 6 knobs on the front of a 303 that you can control, and you know, depending on how hard you push the thing, you can get some sounds. My shoulder hurts. Some sounds that are absolutely nothing close to bass, and yeah. So as early as 1985, there was a tune. It was written by a few kids from Chicago that called themselves Future. They wrote a tune called Acid Tracks. And that was a big one. It was a really, really big one. It's generally regarded as the first acid house record. And it's good, man. Here's what's crazy. It was released, from what I gather, in January of 1987. Which, if you think about it, that's 28 years this month. That's wild. And if you play it in front of the right dance floor, it'll still ruin that crowd. So the way, you know, the way the story goes, the Future, they got the tune over to Ron Hardy. Ron Hardy was a very influential DJ at a club called the Music Box in Chicago. Chicago, of course, being where House came from. acid house is house. So it's excuse me. Man, this stuff smells good. It smells like it's very grapefruity, but it's almost like effervescent. I don't know, it's crazy. Will knows what he's doing when he makes these soaps. These scents, I should say. This stuff smells great. So yeah, they gave the tune to Ron Hardy. Again, Ron Hardy was a very influential DJ at the Music Box, which is a very influential club in the history of, a very big club in the history of house music. And as the story goes that I know, I wasn't there, nor do I know personally any of the parties involved. The story is that, the tune is about 12 minutes long. The story is that Ron Hardy listened to it, and he listened all the way through, and apparently he didn't really give much of a reaction. But he listened all the way through, and, he kind of gave the indication that he was into it. So he asked for a copy of it if he could play the club, and they obliged. If Ron Hardy asks you for a copy of your tune, you give Ron Hardy a copy of that tune. So Ron Hardy had the tune, and he played it that one night. He played it early in the night. Now, back in these days, Ron Hardy played for like 12 hours. He was at the helm. He was directing the party from start to finish. He was the only person playing, and it was not uncommon for him to play a tune more than once during his 12-hour plus sets. So they said he played it the first time, and people were like, whatever, man, Ron Hardy, he's on something, he's crazy, playing this weird stuff. He played it again a little bit later in the night. I love this story, by the way. He played it again a little later in the night. People, I guess they weren't as turned off to the tune, as the first go round. Everybody was getting a little more loose, you know what I'm saying, feeling the party, etc. And played it a third time. Nobody really said anything. Third time, of course, was a little later in the night. Nobody really said anything. And they said that he played it a fourth time. And that dance floor went ballistic. He said everybody lost it. And what I would not have given to be there that night, the very first time that such an influential tune like that really, really made its point across on the dance floor, in 1986 or whenever it was, seeing as how it was released, so early in the year. Man, what a moment in time that had to be. So they so the thing, people were into it, and that was the first tune. That was the first released acid house record. The tune got over to Larry Sherman, who was running Trax Recordings, who he's an interesting guy. He's got a bit of a story behind him as well. This is kind of off subject, but when I watched Straight Outta Compton this summer, made me wish that, man, how nice would it be if there could be the same movie, but released about the history of house and techno. That would be so good. I mean, I don't see it happening, at least not in this country, but that would be pretty dope. So yeah, Larry Sherman released it. Larry Sherman, he ran a label called Trax. He had some interesting business practices and production techniques, to say the very least. But yeah, he got the tune. It came out. It was big. It was huge. And I'll link the tune in the description of the video. But if you've never heard it, it starts off with like, you know, it's got a really kind of like just a very blunt kick drum, and it has like the little percussive bits and some whistles. Starts building up. That acid line kind of starts forming. Actually, one acid line starts churning along a little bit. And then once the tune really starts swinging, once it really starts doing its thing, and that main acid line comes in, man, it just muscles its way into the tune, and it kind of like, once you hear that sound, you understand why it was called acid house. Another little interesting thing that I very recently came to learn was that originally the tune was called In Your Mind, and nobody, you know, of course the tune wasn't that big yet, so nobody knew that. So Ron Hardy was playing it, and they just called it Ron Hardy's Acid Tracks. Very smart of them to, you know, kind of build on that already established name of Acid Tracks, or excuse me, Ron Hardy's Acid Tracks. So they just dropped the Ron Hardy, released it as Acid Tracks. History was made. Yeah, so that kicked off the whole thing. The history of acid house, I've not really been able to find as much about it, you know, when you compare it to, you know, how, I guess, decently documented the story of techno and house and drum and bass are. But, yeah, my main thing, I love acid house. There was a guy called Armando Gallup. He died in 1996. Rest in peace, Armando. He did some of my very favorite acid tunes. He wrote some funky ones. My very favorite is a tune called Downfall. Man, Downfall is good. I'll link that one as well. He did a ton of big ones. Land of Confusion, 151. He didn't only write acid. He wrote 100% of Dissing You, which is a good tune. Anyway, yeah, Armando Gallup. Bad man. He wrote a lot of big ones. Actually, one of my all-time favorite acid house tunes, excuse me. Is a tune called Older by a guy called Dan Eben. E-B-E-N is the last name. And I'll link that one. It's funky. And let me do this real quick. Word. Yeah, Dan Eben. Older. That's a good one. It's funky. But it's crazy, man, and I guess so many things happen this way. But you know, what a perfect turn of events that Roland just did not ship the thing with a. They didn't ship the thing with an English language manual, so people here in the States were like, I don't know how to use this thing. I'm getting rid of it. Again, they only sold them, Roland only sold them new for 2 years in the States. So, you know, they made it to the pawn shops and stuff, and people were able to get a hold of them. And, man, how good is it that, you know, Pierre, DJ Pierre is one of the guys in Future, and from what I understand, he was kind of, he was the one that really learned how to mess around with the 303 and get those sounds out of it. But man, how fortunate for us that the right way to use the thing wasn't documented. So he just attacked the machine, got on those knobs, and started messing around, you know? And one of the takeaways here that I hope you guys realize is that acid house is an American form of music. Again, kids in Chicago, man, you know, made it overseas. They really liked it, and it's like I said before, British people's infatuation with what black kids are doing in the United States, in the city. It's funny. Of course, you know, they started doing their own thing. I prefer American acid, but that's not to say that there's not any. That's not to say that there's any bad, or excuse me, that there's not any good English acid. Actually, every time I listen to Voodoo Ray by a guy called Gerald, excuse me, and Chime by Orbital, I keep on forgetting how much acid is in those records. Also, you know, not only is the 303 good for that really squelchy sound, but you can also kind of, you can use it as a proper bass machine. Adonis used it in his record, No Way Back. Dude, oh man, that's such a good tune. And again, I'll link that one down as well. There was a guy called Maurice Joshua that did a record called This Is Acid. More of a hip house thing. But, you know, that was released on tracks as well. Made it overseas. An English guy, I don't know what the guy's name is, but he remixed it, and it's called the K&T remix of This Is Acid. And it's got these really Detroit chords, man. What a stomper of a tune. So yeah, Acid House. Last year when I went to the festival, Future played. They did a live PA, and it was good. It was really good. Pierre is going to be DJing this year. And that should be good as well. Pierre actually lives in Atlanta these days. He has a night there called Afro Acid, where he brings a lot of good names, good big names to the Atlanta area. Saw Kevin Saunderson last year. That was a blast. Actually, I've seen Kevin Saunderson twice. That DJ Pierre brought him down. I've been to a few of those parties. I've had a good time every time. Let me get this stuff off my face. BRB. These feather blades are rough, or they're not rough, they're just mega sharp. This razor does a hell of a job taming these blades. Again, I'm going to post links, YouTube links to a lot of these tunes. And if you're into them, you should buy them. MP3s are cheap these days, or you can be cool and buy the record. Very good. Man, this stuff smells good. Again, it's like really grapefruity and floral and kind of fizzy, effervescent, like I said, but the grapefruit really is what's big there. Today's aftershave is going to be lilac vegetal. Oh man, I always have a hard time getting this cap off with wet hands. reports of this aftershave smelling terrible are greatly exaggerated. It's not for everyone, that's for sure. But it's good. So yeah, acid house. If anybody, I'll link some mixes and stuff as well. There was actually a new Pierre mix that I ran across, newish Pierre mix that I ran across the other day that I'll link. It's hosted on SoundCloud. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a download link. Hopefully it'll be made downloadable sometime in the near future. And we're gonna call this done. Hope you guys have had a good weekend. Those of you in the eastern part of the United States, I hope you've not been bored with probably having to stay inside a majority of the weekend. Yeah, I'll see you guys soon. Be safe, be easy. Have a good week. Peace.